Uh, Hello, everybody, and welcome to our panel. Perhaps I will introduce Jordan, who's a filmmaker or film curator
Film curator. No, I haven't made them yet.
and performance artist and all around bon vivant here in Montreal, who conceptualized and put this project together.
Thank you. I am so grateful to be here. I am really grateful for the support of Suoni with scoring Homelands. This is a whole new platform for me and a couple of our presenters. Scoring Homelands was born out of our conversation with previous Suoni programmer Peter Burton and me about how to bring the kind of shows, the kind of experiences and performances that we wanted to have to life, whether or not the pandemic would permit in-person performances. And so it was an aspiration to show films by filmmakers who I admire and have their new and or already completed short films scored live by musicians chosen by James Goddard at Suoni. And so with some kind of like Saturn returny vibe that has occurred, we are waiting on Andres Salas, who's one of the invited musicians, and Belinda Campbell to join us, as well as filmmaker Barrick Many Wounds, who's joining us from Alberta. And with us today are, in inverse order of their joining the conversation, Eliza Caution, a tremendous guitarist, performer, vocalist, rock musician extraordinaire, whose work we want to be part of this project as it brings the theme that I'll discuss after introducing the other two artists who are with us, as it brings the theme of home and being out of the home and being trapped in home and what one's home even is, were the inspirations and the out of body experience that we can get from film and music, and the homelessness that we feel when we as performers weren't allowed to perform live. There was a sense of itinerancy, and that is something that I hope that Scoring Homelands can, for me at least, heal, is to bring us away from the digital and back into the lived, kinetic, and the embodied. So the very embodied works of filmmakers that came to mind for this program include Carlos Soriano, whose work El Gesto La Sombra was made in Cuba and will be shown. You'll be seeing a clip of it tonight. Carlos's work is going to be presented in June as part of the Scoring Homelands live show with a live score by Andres Salas. After that, we'll look at a short film by Barrick Many Wounds, who's gone back into their personal archive to re-edit a short film that's perhaps so far so different from the clip that you're going to see today as to be a little surprising. It is a gorn bathroom horror film from 10 years ago that they're re-editing for the purposes of a live presentation with the live score by Eliza Caution. And then we're going to see documentary filmmaker and experimental filmmaker, producer, and curator Nadine Gomez's film Avant la Nuit, a clip from that, as it will be live scored by experimental musician, pianist, and all-around artist extraordinaire Belinda Campbell. And the result, whatever comes out of this conversation, is to make this encounter between these various artists. I want to thank the artists for their generosity in coming along with something to me as simple as live scoring a film, which is one of the most ancient forms of presenting the score of film, going back to silent films before they were linked with sound. The sound, as everyone knows, the soundtrack was actually like sheet music that was given to an organist or a pianist. I wanted to recreate that. And at this particular moment, it could seem worlds away. I wanted to keep to, we're going to be together for another 59 minutes. And I wanted to thank everyone for joining us. Alors, merci beaucoup pour tout le monde qui se joint à nous à partir de leurs appareils. Merci beaucoup à Suoni encore et merci encore une fois aux artistes pour leur générosité et l'engagement qu'ils ont montré à faire vivre cette expérience qui, pour l'instant, reste future et j'espère l'amener au-delà des rêves et vers la réalité même. À la Sala Rosa, ce temple pour moi de l'immédiat et du communautaire au sein de ma communauté ici à Montréal, sur Tchotchage. Pour cela, I think the first thing that we might do as Carlos, amongst their many, many, many talents, is currently troubleshooting a Discord onboarding with Barrick Many Moons. I think we can just start, Carlos. If you'd like to say a couple of words of intro, and then we'll look at a clip from El Gesto La Sombra, and we'll move on from there.
All right. This movie was made using the tools that that we use in the documentary, and I wanted to try to fictionalize the life of this woman that was really close to me, and our friendship became the research for the movie. It's not. It is very ambitious, but it's not. It's just trying to break the barrier in these categories that are very different. Visually, I wanted it to be very like a fly on the wall, and still try to create the mise en scène and the whole construction of a narrative that was serving my purposes, and creating a story that would create a document of life in Havana at that time, at late communism, and in Cuba, and also create a parallel into with the end of the life of this woman who is, as well as Cuba, was is living in the memories of what was before. So this woman is playing herself in a movie that we made around her life, and we have inserted characters that represent people in her life, and we do like real actors directing. I use those tools to try to convey some of the emotions that I knew because of our friendship that she felt, and that she wanted to pass on and to transmit, and in the way that many Cubans are often very eloquent about the way that the question about what being Cuban is, and I think that is my response to that question. I did it at the end of my 3-year stay when I lived there in Cuba, and it is one of the many documents that came out of it that will be with me forever.
Awesome, thanks. Let's check it out. So for the panelists on Discord, I think you can tune in here, or you can watch directly on Facebook Live or on Suoni, the Suoni website, or on YouTube.
Well, yeah. Suoni website would be ideal. I'm going to play the film now.
Bueno, te contaré de que ayer me subió la presión.
¿Ah, sí?
Y tuve que ir al médico y me tomó la presión. Ahora voy a llevar un poquito de café y para que antes de que termine la guardia me tome la presión.
Ah, está bien. Bueno, dale,
feliz día.
Chao.
Muchas gracias.
¿Cómo andan?
¿Quién es mía?
Bien,
¿Cómo está tu
¿tú?
mamá?
Bien, bien, gracias. ¿Y qué
Ah,
haces?
dale,
¿Buscando comidita?
dale siempre un cariño a mi amiga.
Ah, igual, mi vida.
Sí, buscando aquí algunas papas, pero no veo papas.
Yo andaba buscando también unas papitas para hacer una caldosita y eso. Y
pues,
plátano principalmente, y
un
una
pedacito de
papita,
pollo,
árbol,
sí.
siempre le he hecho, ¿no?
Sí, sí, y te queda una cardosa
Y un
riquísima.
pedacito de carnita.
Ah, muy importante. ¿Cómo se llama? Un poquito de sal, un poquito de aceite y todo eso lo pone en la batidora, lo bate todo. Eso no se llama una sopa francesa, una sopa fría. Lo puedes tomar antes de almuerzo, antes de comida.
Ay, que alimenticio, porque es de vegetales.
Y entre el día así, te toma un buchito también. Cuando tengas debilidad para no comerte un pedazo de pan ni nada de eso, te toma un buchito de eso y eso te alimenta.
Ah, mira qué bien. Está bien, lo voy a hacer. Gracias, Mari. Me alegro mucho que estés bien. Chao. Nos vemos.
Está bien, está bien.
Hello. That was a clip from Carlos Soriano. I don't speak Spanish actually, so maybe Carlo, you could pronounce the film title.
Sorry. Yeah, it's the gesture, the shadow. It's el gesto, la sombra, and it's a. I think it comes from a poem by Breton, and I wanted to talk about what the what is out of the shot. Like I wanted to. I'm trying to explain what I was thinking 10 years ago. Um, it's like kind of what when a star uh, explodes and it's still transmitting light. I wanted to like inverse it and make it with shadows. It's like when you're gone, is your shadow still behind you? Something like that. It's something that you understand kind of at the end of the short.
Hmm.
Thank you, Carlos. El Gesto de Sombra has not been showed extensively. Like, I think all of Carlos's work needs to be seen more. And your web series, what's it called? Something dans la neige? I should know this.
In The Revenge of the Snowflakes.
The Revenge of the Snowflakes recently won a prize at Film Festival, and I am a huge Carlos Soriano stan. Thinking about where we were a year ago, thinking about the alienation of the elderly and their confinement, I felt like there was something really current and beautiful and relatable to this. To Marie's making of the coffee and her little grocery runs, which for like 2 years was the extent of my social activity. I don't know about the rest of you. But on that poignant note, Carlos and Andres Salas will be put together for Carlos's film with the music of Andres Salas will be put together for the Suoni presentation in June, and more will be revealed. Joining us now, all the way from Treaty 7, is the multidisciplinary artist Barrick Many Wounds. Barrick, if you would like to say a couple of things about Sanizid, we're going to bring you on, and then we're going to show that clip, followed by Nadine Gomez, for those of you who are just joining us. Barrick, you are this is your first time and this meeting Eliza Caution, who is the musician guitarist, vocalist, and performer extraordinaire who is invited to live score the film that you are re-editing for scoring Homelands. So welcome, Barrick Many Wounds.
Lovely to meet you all, and please excuse me. I'm so sorry. I'm on my reserve in Treaty 7, and the internet is always a post-apocalyptic mess. So please excuse me. That was very, very difficult. But I'm here. Thank you for having me. And for the film that we're going to see a segment of today is my most successful work that I did while I was at the Intermedia Cyber Arts program at Concordia, which is what I was doing while I was living in Montreal. I'm not in Montreal right now. I'm back home. But Zanidsid is a short dance film that I did perform in and dance in. The music was created by a Quebecois artist, a dear friend named Eric Lachapelle. And it is a dance piece about transformation, metamorphosis, as related to my two-spirit identity. So that's what's going to be showing today. Thank you for having me.
All right. Now for Senizit.
Yeah, very much. Coming to Montreal, I became interested in performance and contemporary dance and sort of modern theater type stuff. Very much live performing arts. But I was always interested in like contemporary theater that used projections as well, like live performance with projections. So Zanitsid was a dance film, but utilizing my skills as a video artist. And so yeah, I think it's probably the best example of that. But what I'm going to be showing in June was something that I had shot actually back in 2012, and it's, yeah, I would say it's very different. Zanitsid is kind of this I would say there's kind of this emerging kind of breakthrough metamorphosis piece. And I guess the piece that I'm going to show in June is not unrelated to those things, but it's definitely a more darker tone. It is very much a piece of cinema, even though I am performing in it, but I guess I'm acting. But it is very much like a psychological kind of self-portrait cinematic piece.
Since we have Eliza with us, I thought as we're waiting for Belinda Campbell to join us to watch Nadine's piece, Nadine's short together, I thought perhaps you could give us a little insight into the radicality of the short that you would like to see live scored as part of scoring Homelands, and anything else that you might like to share about.
About our collaboration, you're wondering if
About the horror, about the horror short that you're revisiting, in terms of having it live scored. What can Eliza look forward to seeing? It is you playing a you playing yourself, being visited by.
yeah, it's how would I describe it for you, Eliza? It's like at the time I was really kind of obsessed with a lot of like elevated horror and like kind of the best of like world cinema in terms of horror. So I was looking at like the old masters like Dario Argento, even Roman Polanski when he was doing horror in the 70s. And I had moved into an apartment in the gay village in Vancouver that reminded me of like kind of like Suspiria. Oh, hello.
Allô?
Hi.
Is that
Vous voyez?
Belinda?
That's
That's
Belinda.
good.
Belinda, welcome.
Knock, knock.
Bienvenue.
You
Hello.
see me?
Yes. Is that the answer? Sorry, Barry.
That's
Belinda
okay. That's
Belinda
okay.
Campbell is joining us.
That's
So
okay.
you are looking at 70s horror. Bienvenue, Belinda. On va bientôt montrer le court-métrage de Nadine Gomez. Et pour l'instant, c'est Beric Manymoons qui partage un synopsis, un aperçu avec la musicienne Eliza Caution de son court-métrage d'horreur qui sera which will be the film that will be presented as part of Scoring Homelands in June. So yeah, Beric, you star in it, you made it, and you are visited by a kind of demonic, like murder-ready sex demon.
That's one interpret. That's a good interpretation.
That was my
Yeah,
weekend.
yeah, yeah. I definitely there's a predatory villain kind of monster ghost man who has all sorts of like weird kind of like like abusive and sexual power in the piece. And so it very much was kind of a grappling with like psychological elements of trauma and post trauma and the things that I guess are in the body when it comes to unresolved, well, trauma. And so that kind of played out in this very like hyper dramatized way that was very much in the frameworks of horror cinema for me. And so the film is, yeah, it's sort of, you don't know if the monster man, if he's a lover, if he's a figment of my mind, what he is, you don't really know, but he is definitely sort of menacing, kind of like this seductive figure. So it sort of plays out as this like sort of cat and mouse kind of a sadistic and twisted like psychological horror piece. But it is interesting because it's kind of a self-portrait. I at the time didn't know that I was working out something that was as deep and as personal that I would later realize it was. But when it comes to the music, I realized as a filmmaker and someone who's not a musician that the films that most of the films that we all love, like a lot of them wouldn't stand on their own without music and the musician and the composer. And so I'm really fascinated by what what a composer and a musician might bring to the work. And certainly, I think the best sort of like classic horror greats in the cinema world owe a lot to the score that is made for it. So I'm very curious. I don't know how you might respond to that, Eliza, to those descriptions. But that's kind of what I would say about it at this point, I think.
Eliza, you getting to score a homemade horror film? I'll assume she is because she's here with us.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have not had the opportunity to score a horror film yet. However, I'm really looking forward to it. A lot of my work deals with my home community, which is Ganasadage, and a lot of my work in the past has kind of been trying to like, I guess, score like live trauma and intergenerational trauma and things that my community has experienced specifically in the last 30 years after the 1990 crisis. Yeah, so I'm really excited to do something a bit more on the artistic end, as opposed to like some literal political thing.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing that. That gives me a lot of insight to where you're coming from. And I think that it gives me permission to actually own that, yeah, while it is a highly dramatized, highly theatrical piece, it actually is very rooted in like trauma that I've sort of carried in my life and in my body as an Indigenous person. And I realized that after I had shot the film, and it's sort of become more and more like reflective of that, like more of a serious tone than when I originally imagined it. It was very fictional when I had originally conceived it, but I realized that it was coming from something from a truthful place that was very painful. So I'm excited. I'm very excited to see to hear what you might do with it. Yeah, I don't know if one thing that comes up. I don't know if you know the original Suspiria film by Dario Argento. Yeah, that score is sort of iconic and is just sort of wild and like and very dreamlike and very very terrifying. But sonically, just such another world, So I'm not saying that I'm hoping that's what we create, but that's kind of like that's an example that I would set as being like, wow, that film really does have an identity because of the music. It was like a character in the film, I felt. So, but any direction that you take it, I'm so curious and honored to see what happens. Yeah.
Cool, same.
I feel like one of the big advantages that you're going to have, Eliza, in scoring Barrick's short is this idea of recovery. I think that sort of like it's almost like the worst case scenario of what might happen in hypnotherapy, where you're like, I think something bad happened in 2012, and then it turns out something even worse happened. But then there's also not a lot of dialogue. So I think knowing the instrument that you dominate there could be a lot of really great opportunities for emotionality, and you won't have to be as subtle around the dialogue as is the segue that I'm going to use. Unless Eliza, did you want to add something? Because I'm only seeing Carlos now, which is an accurate reflection of a typical Monday for me. But on my version of Discord, that's the only person I can see.
Everyone else is here.
Love that. So Eliza, if you wanted to add something, or we could come back to it at the end, because I think there's something super rich about what you just mentioned, scoring intergenerational trauma and this notion of sort of the archaeology of our traumas being something that you can.
Not really. I don't really have anything more to add to that, but I'm just really excited to work with Barrick and get more familiar with the material.
Love it. Welcome, Nadine Gomez. Now, in as a segue that I was kind of making there is a very, very different kind of film. As with what we've just seen from Barracks, we saw Tennyson, which differs immensely from the short that will be shown in June, Nadine's Avant la Nuit, As Night Descends, a discussion with a sociologist around food security, climate change, and the current ecological moment. It has a Attenboroughian up close and personal with nature vibe, as well as like beautiful extracts of dialogue. The film that Nadine's pitched to us, that's going to come out for the June pour ce mariage, si tu veux, ou ce jumelage de Scoring Homelands entre un nouveau court-métrage that I'll let Nadine introduce dans la langue de ton choix et sera traité en musique live par non le moyen que Belinda Campbell, pianiste, artiste expérimentale et musicienne extraordinaire. So, Nadine, je te cède la parole. Ensuite, pour un extrait de Avant la nuit, et ensuite, on aura une discussion entre toi et Belinda.
Merci beaucoup de m'accueillir dans cette communauté. Je ne sais pas si je suis mieux de parler en français ou en anglais. C'est plus facile pour moi en français, mais français, je vais parler en français.
En français, c'est correct.
Super.
Vas-y.
Oui, puis donc l'extrait, mais d'abord, c'est ça, je suis extrêmement excitée par l'idée qu'on ait un événement ensemble, que nos films soient projetés, que la musique se fasse live. Je pense que ça va être une fabuleuse expérience, mais aussi une façon de réinvestir, je pense, le cinéma autrement, parce que si le cinéma n'est pas mort pendant la pandémie, les arts vivants ont beaucoup souffert. Le cinéma était comme continuait, mais dans les maisons, chacun chez soi. Alors, cette expérience-là va être superbe. Et le film Avant la nuit a été fait dans le contexte de l'ONF qui a fait un appel à projet justement pour nous sortir un peu de la torpeur pendant qu'on était au début d'un confinement, qu'on ne savait pas où est-ce que ça allait nous mener. Et donc, moi, j'ai tourné autour de chez moi en campagne pendant quelques semaines. Et j'ai eu une conversation avec mon professeur à l'université qui a été mon directeur de maîtrise, avec qui on a gardé un dialogue à travers les années qui était très éclairant pour moi puis qui me faisait du bien. Donc, cet extrait-là a été scoré par Virginie Reed, qui est une compositrice musicienne aussi de grand talent. Et ça a été un exercice assez complexe parce que justement, il y a de la parole à peu près sur tout le film. Donc, il fallait vraiment trouver une façon que la musique soit comme une espèce de présence à la fois sonore, à la fois comme qu'elles habitent les images, mais qu'elles n'étouffent jamais la voix. Donc, c'était vraiment un exercice d'équilibre pour ce film-là. Et le film, mais aussi, j'ai découvert le travail de Belinda grâce à Suoni, puis je suis vraiment excitée parce que le projet sur lequel on va potentiellement travailler, c'est c'est quelque chose de très exploratoire. C'est un cumul d'images que je rentre dans mon téléphone depuis 6 ou 8 ans, je pense. En me déplaçant, quand je voyage, j'ai comme archivé des trucs que je trouvais inusités, drôles. Donc, peut-être un côté un petit peu plus d'humour là-dedans, d'observer notre espèce humaine exister d'une manière étrange dans le monde. Le sens du film n'est pas encore défini, c'est une exploration. Donc, je pense que la musique va justement, au contraire, vraiment venir dialoguer avec l'image. En fait, c'est ça qu'on s'est rendu compte avec la monteuse avec qui je travaille. On se disait, ça va être 2 langages qui vont se rencontrer. Donc, je pense que de la musique et des images pourrait émerger quelque chose de vraiment. Ça, c'est le film qui sera là en juin. Pour l'instant, avant la nuit qu'on va regarder un petit extrait.
Awesome.
Je
Thank
vais
you.
montrer l'extrait, puis après on revient, puis peut-être Belinda peut répondre. Ok.
Parfait.
Merci, James.
Ce qui nous arrive, ça nous fait voir à la fois le pire, certes, mais aussi le meilleur. Oui, le meilleur. On en voit du meilleur. C'est ce qui nous permet en même temps, malgré tout, de se dire, ben, putain de bordel de merde, peut-être qu'on va sortir de ça. On va s'être approché, en tout cas, de la conscience de la nécessité que là, wake up, il faut réfléchir, puis réfléchir avec nos sens d'abord. Je suis profondément convaincu que si on ne ramène pas à l'avant-scène la question de la poésie du monde, la beauté du monde, c'est foutu.
You have one new message.
Allô Nadine, c'est Jean. On est mercredi. Il n'y a pas de visible s'il n'y a pas d'invisible. La parole, évidemment, c'est invisible. La culture, on peut aussi dire que c'est invisible. Puis je dirais que c'est la reconnaissance de cette invisibilité qui en fait toute la force et toute la richesse. On arrive dans un monde qui nous précède, qui va nous survivre. Puis s'il ne nous survit pas, la Terre va peut disparaître, là. C'est pas la Terre qu'il faut sauver. C'est pas la Terre qu'il faut sauver. La Terre, elle va sauver. Puis on sait que dans 4 milliards d'années, en gros, elle va disparaître. Bon. C'est les rapports vivants sur la Terre qu'il faut sauver. Il s'agit tout bonnement de reconnaître que on n'est pas autofondé et tout puissant. On est lié à autrui. C'est soi qui se construit, qui se constitue, qui se déploie, qui vit et qui meurt dans le rapport à autrui. Le simple fait de reconnaître ça, ça donne un peu d'humilité. Ça devrait en tout cas nous donner de l'humilité et dire, ben, on va s'en tirer ensemble. Parce que ça veut dire quoi, ça, cette reconnaissance? C'est la reconnaissance des limites. Reconnaître qu'on appartient à quelque chose, on s'inscrit plutôt dans quelque chose qui nous déborde, qui nous limite, mais qui donne en même temps la richesse à nos vies. Et là, j'ai pas perdu tout sens critique, là, parce que reconnaître ce qui nous dépasse, c'est aussi reconnaître que ce qui nous dépasse, il est de notre responsabilité à tous d'en baliser le cadre. Tu comprends? Moi, je suis pas prêt à abandonner ça à n'importe qui. Ça s'appelle la démocratie, ça. Mais la démocratie, c'est pas reconnaître l'autonomie de chacun pour choisir sa propre fin. d'une façon absolue, c'est collectivement baliser l'horizon de nos existences.
And so we're back after
So
having
beautiful.
just watched Belinda's beautiful film.
Oh, Nadine's.
Nadine's beautiful film. But we're
Which
back
will
to
be.
hear Belinda's responses.
J'ai pas vu la vidéo, elle était où?
this platform.
Je l'ai vue sur le site de l'ONF, mais c'est drôle, je cherchais sur l'écran puis je la voyais pas.
Ouais,
C'est une particularité de... Oh, pardon, Jane.
Et de toute façon, c'est.
My screen sharing isn't working.
Ok, je vois une icône jaune avec. Oh. Désolée, hein.
Mais de toute façon, tu avais déjà regardé le film, ouais.
J'ai vu sur le site de l'ONF, oui.
Alors comme ça, avec votre expérience avec le film, puis ce que Nadine vient de dire, avez-vous des réponses, des idées artistiques?
Vite comme ça, il faudrait que je vois la vidéo de Nadine. Donc, il faudrait que je vois les. Est-ce que Nadine, tu es rendue à comme un rush final ou c'est comme en évolution encore?
En évolution, mais on a un 4 minutes qu'on va t'envoyer. Puis on a même
Cool.
fait un rip-off. On est allé sur ton site et on a testé avec une de tes pièces. Puis c'est pour ça que c'est tricky parce qu'on se disait, faut pas accoler quelque chose qui existe déjà, puis peut-être piéger les images là-dedans. Mais déjà, cette rencontre-là était super inspirante. Donc,
Et j'aimerais
c'est
bien voir.
très. Ouais, on va t'envoyer ça. Jordan a
Parfait.
ça entre les mains.
Ben oui, c'est ça. Ben oui, je fais de la composition. Ben, je suis assez habituée de travailler avec des images, donc composition et images, parce que je fais depuis toujours, je fais la composition pour mes vidéos, mes propres vidéos, mes performances aussi, ou mes vidéos performances. Puis j'ai déjà fait 2 pièces musicales aussi pour de la danse. Donc c'est quelque chose qui me parle beaucoup, donc de m'inspirer d'une image, ça me parle beaucoup. Et puis, oui, qu'est-ce que je pourrais dire d'autre? C'est sûr que si c'est expérimental, s'il y a de l'humour, c'est aussi quelque chose avec lequel moi j'aime bien travailler. Voilà.
Oh, parlons d'humour, c'est drôle parce que pour moi, un départ qui serait pour moi très fertile et très intéressant dans l'œuvre de Nadine, c'est, if I may summarize Nadine very grossièrement, is that for me, Nadine's first forays and most extant exhibitions of film are quite political. And so the Scoring Homelands short that as you've described it, is this, I see it as a kind of editing room floor collage of what, in a way, being, of what home means now. Home is this place that we're kind of trapped in. It's this place of rumination, but also a place of exploring what didn't seem important before, in a way, like what might not have made it into a film like pardon me, Horse Palace, which is Nadine's extraordinary first documentary, interviewing the Kalesh drivers and Kalesh riders in the Old Port before their stable was closed down in St. Henry 9 years ago. Griffintown, thank you. Back when Griffintown wasn't just trademark. Clop, 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 clop. And so that to me, Nadine, do you want to kind of give us another aperçu of how the notion of home has been transformed for you, or how that will inspire the collage that you're working on, or the short that you're working on?
It might be
Well, I
interesting
think
to ask everyone about their
Yeah,
relationship
bring
to
it on.
home.
True.
quickly, I could say that what you said for me arises the question of space. And I think maybe the film I'm working on is an exploration of what space is, because I filmed this while being all over the place, traveling, moving around. And so rewatching it now, well, now I've moved for the first time in 2 years, but like when I was editing just the 4 minutes, like the little rough editing, I was like, wow, feeling like the freedom of, or the freedom that I had, and the contrast with it being stuck. So I think home is a fluid question. C'est une question de fluidité poreuse, autant d'enfermement que de liberté, mais il y a eu comme toutes sortes, comme si les murs se refermaient puis se réouvraient selon les moments dans lesquels on se trouve. Puis ce projet-là, je pense que ça va être la réouverture des murs.
Je pense que le home est dans les mémoires. Il n'y a pas une façon d'appeler un endroit, une maison, sans s'appuyer sur tout le vécu qu'on y associe. C'est pas, pour moi, c'est pas l'espace, c'est le souvenir. Je voulais juste interjecter comme ça.
I love that idea, Carlos. I'll just summarize for the listeners and anyone else. These two really, I think, you really capture the paradoxes here that I was interested in with this film, with this theme as well, which was that the windows into a freer time that Nadine's project is based on is that in the whether or not it was, from being confined with family or being confined in general, and these images, it can inspire a certain melancholy for all of the various forms of filming that you were doing all around the world, in like Athens and and everywhere with your documentary practice. And then for Carlos, this notion of home being essentially a bit of a nostalgic place, that it always exists as in the realm of nostalgia, as I think a lot of expatriates naturally feel, even though Cuba was your second home, Carlos, that association with that longing. And then kind of as part of both, perhaps, Barrick, because Barrick was one of my mental, emotional pole, continental diametric opposite similarity lifesavers during the pandemic, because I moved home to New Brunswick and was stuck there teaching French to my nephews, and Barrick was back home living with their grandmother. I think that paradox will probably strike quite close to home you as well.
Yeah, Jordan, you said something. Home is maybe like a place we're trapped in. And there's this like rumination regarding home in relation to my piece. It's not. It wasn't shot where I'm from. I was living alone in an apartment as like a young artist. But I would say, when I think about it, like home as your own body is a concept that like I think that I'm constantly trying to understand and sort of heal, because I have like chronic pain issues. And then when I think about home as an Indigenous person, and probably most everybody else in some way, like people of the diaspora and people who aren't originally from this land could probably relate. But I feel that concept of home as related to a relationship, to a place, to a family and a community, and to land, I think has been very fractured and very traumatized, and often completely severed in a very violent way. And so I feel that my film as a horror film surrounding trauma really speaks to this idea of like a ruptured and violated sense of home in one's own body. So I feel like I'm kind of working that out, like where is my home if it's not in my body? And how is that related to concepts around horror, which are often about the loss of personal power and being sort of like seized by a violent force that was unforeseen. So I think that, yeah, horror and colonialism go hand in hand with me, and how I relate to my body is something I'm constantly working out, and I feel it'll be reflected in the work.
Well, and especially in the approach to horror, the uncanny, I'm always reminded of the Freudian word for the uncanny is unheimlich, which means the feeling of not being at home, whether that feeling is in your own body or out in the world, and that seems quite innately connected to why this mode of horror is perhaps so very appealing to you, even though Sanizid was this very Apollonian departure from that interest. I do love and have to recount the anecdote though that for Sanizid Berg's short, they completed the edit before they heard the soundtrack. And so it exists as sort of this, to me, it's like a kind of blessing to scoring Homelands that we've been innate to Barrick is a sense that the score and the film are going to somehow be magical when the end result appears.
I think so. Yeah.
Welcome, Andres. Hello.
Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you. Sorry I'm late.
Andres,
Nice.
work. This is Carlos Soriano. He's gonna send you a film that you can live score
I
for
want you to
scoring Homelands in
destroy it.
June.
Please destroy my film. No, there's something because when before my clip, I should have spoken about my approach to scoring film, and I didn't. So it's amazing that you're here now because now you can hear it. I don't believe that we have time anymore to only um, punch an emotion or a situation. I think the movie that I made is moving between two genres, I believe, and using whatever tool necessary, and it was done using every tool necessary, everything that we had to make. I don't think we have time to complacent scoring that it's only ornamental. And I want every creator, and well, I speak for myself, to work, use the images freely, and I, I don't want the presence of the music to disappear. I'm not like this. I don't think in this context the work of the musician is should only be at the service of the image. I'm looking forward to to dialogue and interact and create a different text, maybe. I don't know. Godspeed.
And I think I might say that part of what inspired me to select these particular musicians is in my experience of their work, neither of the three is shy per se. They're willing to make sounds that take attention and draw attention. So
Yeah, it sounds great. And I think the key word there that you were saying is dialogue. So that's fantastic, really, and I'm really excited about this project. Thank you for inviting me and to take part on this. It's really great and exciting.
mhm. And we just, Jordan had posed to the filmmakers to share some thoughts about home, which is the theme underlying foundational element of this project. So I wonder if maybe now the musicians could take turns sharing some ideas about home. And maybe how that could be expressed musically, or how you found, I know for myself as a musician, making music at home has changed my music considerably over the pandemic, where historically I would have spent more time performing out and playing with other people.
I can speak on that real quick if that's cool. Yeah, for myself, I have a weird relationship with home because a lot of my work deals with it. Being from Ganasadage, growing up as a queer kid and wanting to play music and wanting to be part of like hardcore and hip hop and these things that I was really interested in. There was no audience for that kind of thing in Ganasadage. It's a really small town and arguably existing in modern segregation, racial segregation. And so it was always a place to leave up until COVID hit, and then all our venues and all of our places of expression were closed down. And so I think also to just on a safety level, being able to go back home to a place where there wasn't a lot of people, there was maybe 10 people walking up and down my street throughout the entire day, made me view Ganasadage as a kind of luxury for the first time, and a place where there's actually a lot of creative juices to be, I guess, explored. And so that was kind of both left me feeling demoted and liberated at the same time. So that's what I have to say on home in relation to work right now.
Moi, je dirais que c'est un lieu de pratique. Comme je joue du piano, c'est sûr que tout ce qui est pratique de l'instrument, en fait, de façon profonde, ça se passe à la maison. Aussi de développer des idées pour des concerts ou des performances. Ça se passe à la maison, mais aussi, je trouve des fois, la maison peut être un lieu où ça peut être dangereux dans le sens que dans notre maison, quand on crée de façon musicale, c'est très, très confortable parce qu'on contrôle beaucoup notre environnement et il n'y a personne pour nous regarder. Donc, ouah, on se laisse aller, c'est le fun. Et quand on arrive devant un public ou dans une nouvelle salle ou avec du nouveau matériel, déjà tout vient un peu défaire cette espèce de setup qu'on s'était fait à la maison avec le confort, l'intimité. Donc il y a comme quelque chose je trouve, qui est par rapport à la maison qui est justement, oui, très confortable, très personnel, très intime. Mais il faut toujours être un peu prêt à ce que cette intimité-là ou cette espèce de préparation-là qu'on s'est fait à la maison soit complètement défaite en concert ou avec d'autres personnes ou en fait, avec un public.
C'est fou quand je pense à maison, je pense jamais au confort.
Ah oui? Moi, je trouve
Ça,
ça
c'est
très
parce que tu as
confortable.
un chum, Carlos. Ça, c'est parce que tu habites avec un chum. Non, mais je peux dire. I think I'm fascinated by this idea of home as a place of danger, that the comfort is dangerous because there's nothing for me, as a drag performer, there's nothing more antithetical to drag than having to do drag on Zoom at home, where like no one can even tell if you're wearing uncomfortable shoes, and like nobody laughs at your jokes. And you know, it is a place where there's a sense of being deprived, and so the opposite of that is, I think, that freedom that you're talking about, Belinda, that freedom to kind of do whatever you want, but it's doing whatever you want in a sort of cushy environment. when you're used to the spiky environment of, people drinking and other queens insulting you and all the things that make drag wonderful. Or the risk, that
Andreas,
we
do you have any thoughts?
go ahead.
And then I think we're running out of time. Is the only reason
Um,
I cut you off there, Jordan.
yeah, so I'm home, and that's why I'm late actually, because I just noticed that it's Montreal time is 8:48, and here is
Oh,
7:48. So I thought I was totally on time, and I just noticed that I'm so late. I'm sorry. So I'm home, and well,
and where is home for
my
you? Maybe for
Colombia.
context, Colombia.
Oh, right. Sorry. Yeah. So I'm in Colombia right now. I'm from Colombia. But I've lived in so many different places like Germany, the States, Canada, in Canada like Vancouver, Montreal. So I guess for me, home, I guess I can relate in a sense, in a way, with the idea of dangers, like danger somehow, but also in like instability. I guess for me, it's like finding like I've been able to find comfort in something that is not stable.
All the all
That's a
the
really
all the all the immigrants going like,
Mm-hmm.
so, but it's I mean it's so nice to be home. I don't whatever it is. Like I miss my apartment in Montreal too. Some nights here, I kind of think about the snow or ice skating, and I miss that. But then I go out and see the trees, and I'm happy as well. I don't know. I guess it's just a mix of things.
Well, I think on that note, we have reached 5 minutes after our planned end time. So I did want to thank all of the artists for being here tonight and sharing. And this is the first encounter of the musicians with the filmmakers. And hopefully we'll have more or at least in different small groups, the teams will work together to bring the project to light. And thank you all, the viewers, for tuning in. And thank you especially to Jordan for conceptualizing and putting this whole project together. So,
thank
Thank
you,
you.
James and Jordan. Yes, thank you so much.
Yay,
We're very
thank
happy
you,
to participate.
everybody. Andres Salas, Belinda Campbell, Nadine Gomez, Eliza Caution, very many runes, and Carlos Soriano. Thank you. Thank you very much. You're going to hear about a date somewhere around June 21st for the live show.
It's gonna be
And
amazing.
more on that soon. I'm James. I think, can we
I
stick
think,
around, or is the Discord channel ending?
yeah, no, if we
You
could
just go
stick
off
around
air
for 1 minute, we could talk
after we go off
just,
air. Okay,
Wrap it up.
that sounds great.
all right. Thank you, audience.
Thank you for
All right,
watching
Thank
Suoni
you.
TV.
Much.
live from wherever home.